Okay, here we go. On this one, we are going to start by taking away 1 from both sides. Would you please do that and write the resulting equation? By the way, for those that are following along with this, I am switching the order that we are doing our packet, and we are doing the last day of the packet today because this is the stuff on linear programming. Okay, so this lesson I'm giving you right now is for the last day of the packet, so we're going to skip over day 4. Yes, you may use this. All right. Press the silver button. Okay, you should say y is less than or equal to 2x minus 1. And then how do you graph that? Well, you start by graphing the 2x minus 1 thing. That's the y-intercept, that's the slope. So you put a dot here, and then you graph that like that. And then should I make a solid line or a dotted line through it? Solid, because it can be equal to all of those dots that I just made. So it can be on that line. All right, so you make a solid line, and then you shade which way? Under or over it? Under it. Good. So I'd shade like that. There we go. So how many of you already knew that? Raise your hand if you're good with that. Okay, good. Next thing. This kind. It's different in 3 ways. Number 1, the sign's different. Number 2, the y is on the other side. Okay. Number 3, it's got no, or put it this way, it's going to be a dotted line. Okay, go ahead and rewrite this thing. I would always want to have the y on the left. You don't have to, but it just flows nicer for me. And if the pointy end is towards the y, I got to keep the pointy end towards the y. 4x minus 1. Okay. Then you graph that, you shade it in the right way, and then you tilt it towards me, and I will say either yes or no, and then you can put it down. Graph it. You've found the equation for it. Graph it. Yes. Nice job. Yes. Yes. Yup. 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 Still waiting for many of you. Good. Tilt it because it's glare. Tilt it a little differently because glare. Yes. 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 Nope. Shaded the wrong way. Yes. Okay. Now. Oh, couldn't see it? Yes. All right, so okay, here we go. For this kind, you are trying to get a graph of just one letter, like y is greater than or equal to 0. Same thing? All right. Y is greater than or equal to 0. Now, if you're going to graph this one, it's just a number, which means it's a straight line, and it's either an up and down straight line or a left-right straight line. So what I want you to do to start with is just graph the spot where y is 0. That's a no-brainer. That's where both x and y are 0. But now, to decide whether or not this is an up-down or a left-right line, yeah, you could just memorize it, but what if you forget? Then you should just find another spot where y is 0. Any other spot. Like, is this another spot where y is 0? Yes, then you can tell where the line has to go. See what I mean? If I had said here was a spot where y is 0, no, that's a spot where y is 1. So it wouldn't have worked. See what I mean? It'll force you to draw the line in the right way. I'm just trying to give you a way to remember. You don't have to have it memorized. You can just graph all the spots where y is 0, and they'll all be on this line here. Okay, so now my next thing is, should this be a solid or should this be a dotted line? Solid, because of this thing right there. And then should I shade above it or below it? Above it. Okay, easy peasy. Moving on. This kind. Is the y alone yet? Hey, stop talking. You can subtract 1 from both sides, then it'll be alone. And I have y is greater than or equal to 3x plus 3. Okay, can I graph that? Yep, it's simple. Just a normal, easy one here. Or is it? It is. All right, so I start here. and the slope's 3. Slopes, so I go up 3 and over 1. Solid or dotted? Solid, and it says greater than, so which way do I shade? Above. Okay. So, what else do you need to know? Well, there's a lot of other things in linear programming. I'll talk about them in a second. Yes, question? You flip the sign if you ever multiply or divide by a negative. So if I had 3y, like negative 3y is greater than or equal to 2, and I divide both sides by a negative 3, if you ever multiply or divide by a negative, got to switch the sign. Y less than or equal to negative 2/3. Very good point. Okay, there's more. Do you remember what if you multiply by negative? Yeah, that switches the sign too. Do you remember that on these graphs, a lot of times you'd have like one shading this way and it shades down, and then like one over this way and it shaded up, and then a last line that was like here shading over, and then you had this region that was really dark. What was it called? The feasible region. That means everything in there actually works in all of the equations you were given. That's the point. Any spot in there works for everything. It works for all of the equations. So then those spots are the ones you could pick from. Which one is probably going to be the best one? It's one at a corner. These are the best ones you should pick. And you take those vertices, corners, and you plug them into a little formula and you optimize it. Basically, you see which one should we do. If you're faced with a choice as a business, and I could do this, or I could build this many of these, or I could build that many of these, and one makes you a lot more money, of course you're going to pick the one that optimizes your profit. Unless, when you look at costs, you know, maybe there's some reason that even though it's the best thing for the company, it might be a bad thing overall. Like if all of a sudden you realized that you're a company that sells lawn mowing stuff, and you start this little side business of like putting in sprinkler systems, and then you do your profit thing, it comes out that you should only install sprinkler systems. Do you really want to, just because right now that's more profitable for you, do you want to completely quit the lawn business and just do sprinkler systems? Probably not, because you maybe only reason the sprinkler system thing works is because you have all these people you mow their lawns and you're getting all your leads from that. You know what I mean? So you can't just be stupid about just because it says, well, it says that I make more money on sprinklers, so I'm going to quit everything except do sprinklers. Well, it might only be working well because you're doing both together. So you have to use your head too. You can't just look at charts. Yes? I have never seen a graph come out where there's only one point, but if it did, it would be something where they all intersected and all the lines intersected in one spot, and that's the only spot that overlapped. It's a good question. Never heard of that, but it could happen. All right. So your homework for tonight has some of those problems on it. The hardest parts are writing the equations. I want to practice that a little bit with you right now. I'm going to give you a situation. I want you to add a blank page. And I'm going to give you a situation, and I want you to see if you can write the equation for it. All right. We're going to call lawnmowers L and sprinklers K, because S kind of looks like a 5. So lawnmowers are L, sprinklers are K for sprinkle. All right? So if you got L and K are your two variables, what if I want to sell 3 times as many lawnmowers as sprinklers? Write me an equation for that. I want to sell 3 times as many lawnmowers as sprinklers. When it's all said and done, there's got to be an equal sign in there, and you got to have L's and K's. L's are lawnmowers, K's are sprinklers. 5 times, did I say 5? 3 times as many lawnmowers as sprinklers. And L's a lawnmower, K is sprinkler. All right. 3 times as many lawnmowers as sprinklers. So if I go like this, this is most people's first reaction. Then now, think about this. Just look at that, 3L and a K. Which one's bigger then? K or L? The way I wrote it, K is bigger because it takes 3 L's to be 1 K. You see how that's wrong? I have sprinklers, I have a lot more sprinklers than I have lawnmowers then. Like let's say that this was 60 sprinklers, then L would be 20. It's backwards of what you'd think. Be honest, how many of you thought it was 3L equals K? All right. How many of you knew it was 3Ks equals an L? All right, good job. So it's 3Ks equals an L. And how do you check when you're all done? Double check it. And go, okay, so if this is really right, then I could, for instance, have 20 sprinklers, and then 3 times 20 would be 60 lawnmowers. So do I have more lawnmowers than sprinklers? Yeah, that's what I wanted. I wanted 3 times as many. So when you're done, check your equation, see if it makes sense to you. All right, try another one. I want to have 12 less lawnmowers than sprinklers. 12 less lawnmowers than sprinklers. 12 less. Always start with an equals. And you have an L and a K, obviously, have to be in your answer. And obviously a 12 would have to be in my answer. And if it's 12 less, do you get how I'm going to subtract 12 from something? All right, so I got minus 12 like this. And then I just got to figure out, should I take the K and subtract 12 or the L and subtract 12? And 12 less lawnmowers than sprinklers. Okay, so let's just try one. If I stick a K in here and an L in here, now let me see if a situation that would really work. So let's say I had 20 here, 20 sprinklers, minus the 12 would give me 8, and that would be 8. And would that mean I have 12 less lawnmowers than sprinklers? Are there 12 less of these? Yeah, so I did it right. Otherwise, I would have just swapped the variables around, done it the other way if it hadn't worked. How many of you had that one right? Raise your hand if you did. Good job. Okay. That's the hard part for kids usually, is writing those equations. So once you got those equations, you also got to have like greater than or equal to's. Okay? So then they'd add something like this. At least 12 less. And then you got to decide if this should be a greater than or equal to, or a less than or equal to. All right, so at least 12 less. That would mean that I could have even like 13 less, and that would be all right. So if I change this to like a 13, which way should this sign go then? Would 20 minus the 13 be equal to the 8? No. Would it be greater than the 8 or less than the 8? What is 12 minus 13 anyway? 7. And so that would be 7 would be less than 8. So there. I can kind of think it through. Try to figure out, all right, so if it's 12, at least 12 less, so it could be like 13 less. Try it. Stick the numbers in, see if it works for you. All right, so writing the equations is the hardest part of these, and your assignment is to do day 5 of the packet, which is about this stuff. And it's probably the hardest stuff. Although, I don't know, the logs and exponentials that we cover in our 2-hour session on Monday, there's just some stuff in there. Yeah, you're gonna need me to remind you about that, I think. All right, that's all I got for you for today. Again, this was for day 5 of the packet.